Welcome to the IVM Podcast Network.
If you like listening to Simplified, you must listen to other IVM productions like On Course, an excellent podcast for getting information on foreign education and getting you there. New episodes out every Monday. Check it out on the various podcasting apps and on the IVM Podcast app as well.
Good day and welcome to Simblified, ladies and gentlemen, the greatest ever podcast to come out of Malad West.
Actually, it might be the greatest anything to come out of Malad West. I speak from experience, having lived there for a good part of my life. So, Malad, when I was growing up,
in the 20s?
No, much more.
18, 20.
I'm a youthful, sprightly young lad of some 52 summers. So, yeah, don't laugh, dude.
Sorry.
Somebody has to grow old. Anyway, so one of the things that I live close to the Malad Creek, and
you're surrounded by arthritic people, is it? Blood Creek.
No,
terrible.
The proper creek, and we used to, like summer holidays, we used to go wandering around, and there were fishermen who had these little black canoes, and they would hunt for fish in the mangroves.
Okay.
And they were sweet guys, so you ask them, they'll give you a ride in the boat. And one day, one guy, he took me right up to Warsaw.
Wow.
From Malad, okay? And there the creek opens out into the sea. And, so the canoe was very, very placid on the backwaters. And when it goes into the sea, it starts rocking up and down. And I really shat. So I was like pleading with him, Bhaiya, wapas chalo, not in Marathi. And then he laughed, everyone laughed, and they took me to their village in Warsaw. They gave me some food and all, and then I had to catch a bus and come back. So all this shit happened. I was maybe 12 years old, and my parents didn't have a clue. I landed up at 8 o'clock. Yeah, those were the days, man. Now,
for a rural earthy experience like this, you have to pay a lot of money.
So that is my Malad story. For those who've joined in late, hello. Simplified is an earth-shattering podcast and is definitely the greatest content to come out of Chincholi Bandar Road, where we take matters that happen around us and break it down all for you in a language you can understand, so you can appear smarter to people around and without actually becoming smarter, which will spoil
It's actually counterproductive for us if you think about it. If too many people listen, then everyone will become smart. So
So if you actually make people smarter, they'll stop listening to you.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So it's much sadness that we must say Simplified is different today.
Yeah. Yes, very different.
And you will feel its ramifications through the episode.
Truly.
For the first time, I'm not wearing shorts for a recording.
Folks, this is true. For one, I can attest to Chuck's wailing of his otherwise exposed limbs. Though I'm damn sure that people thought the other way around. Not wearing shorts is
whatever.
Nature design, yeah. But what he was actually going for was the fact that we are here without a reliable third wheel, Srikeit, whose voice and sagacity you have no doubt got accustomed to over the last few months.
That's right. If you last joined us for episode 46 and joined us now directly, you might not notice much of a difference. But in between, we did have the services of one Srikeit Tadapalli. We poached the only person who actually listened to the podcast, hence highly increasing both our factual correctness and female fan following.
Don't you know it? Just the other day, I was walking around Chincholi Bandar Road where I was accosted by a group of goggly-eyed teenage girls. And at first, I thought it was my George Clooney-like demeanor because, people have told me.
Sure.
It's like one doesn't want to be immodest, but one has to admit to this.
Correct.
Yeah, that caused a flutter in these. But it turned out that, alas, that was not true. And all that they wanted to do was confirm whether I was the one recording a podcast with the Srikeit. Yeah. And when I said I was, one of them actually fainted a little bit, and the other one asked if he is available, and two begged for an autograph. And the other one who fainted sadly didn't faint in my arms. So I told her that both myself and Chuck were available for a dinner date, and they looked as excited as a person who buys a ticket to see A.R. Rahman in concert to find it somebody called Atul Raj Singhania Rahman.
Or worse, if he sang his songs in Tamil.
Yeah. That was something that happened. Anyway, what we're trying to say is Srikeit is not going to be there in this episode.
But Naren, surely we can embarrass him further.
Yeah, go for it, Chuck. I see you've written down something flowery.
Yes, absolutely. The Wikipedian womanizer will be want. Alas, the Ahmedabadi aphrodisiac will be absent. See, I will try to alliterate it. The suave, inviting, musky charmer that really makes up SIMC. He really does make the women go, oh Christ. That's a reference to, never mind. And ladies, he'd like to ogilvy your mether. Actually, that doesn't even mean anything, but it's pretty kind of hard making that sound dirty.
So this is officially the worst CV I have seen ever.
Yeah.
You realize that none of us can ever take leave of absence from this podcast anymore, right? Because
this is true. This is very true.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we should move on. Now, usually for this part of the episode, we dive into the absolute cesspool of unfiltered nonsense, that is, the profundity of the day. Where we normally dive into worldly statements that usually stem from WhatsApp groups, wishing everyone good morning or so after comparing life to trigonometry, mobile applications or some such. However, today I have this absolute gem. Wonder of maths. The great mathematics equation of all time. 2017 is a unique year. Why? Try this. Age plus year of birth equal to 2017. Okay, now off the bat, if you don't see what's magnificently wrong with this, then please unsubscribe from this podcast right away. We might actually, yes, you might wonder whether we can actually even afford to lose even one of the 5 listeners that we have. But I would personally be able to sleep a lot better knowing that one of the people who hang on to my every word is not the person who thinks that this is actually a revelation. And 2, it's technically not true. It's applicable only if your birthday has already passed in the year already. Like for me, it's not valid yet. Hence, in terms of timing, sending this on July 16th, which somebody on my building group has, is actually a 197 by 365 or 54% chance of success. Statistically, for this to work, you should send it as late in the year as possible. But then we're dealing with people who think that this is actually some sort of black magic. And third, and Naren, I cannot stress this particular point enough, it works every year. It's not bloody unique to 2017. The only reason why this is unique to 2017 is probably because this is the year in which an intellectual tipping point has possibly happened, where there are enough people stupid enough to believe this trope and to forward it. Now, Naren, you know me, I'm a bit of a rebel and I don't have many nice things to say about the Indian educational system or NCERT as a whole. But I think if it means less number of morons forwarding nonsense like this because they think it's dark magic, then by all means bring it on CBSE. We could use a little bit of that school thing that you so recommend.
Wow. That was quite a rant, Chuck. Is this the profundity of the day that finally tips you over the edge of sanity and, sends you over to the dark side, making you a Sid Barrett?
Well referenced. I see your children are... anyway.
Yeah. My younger son has been... one of the sections we do is little known fact about ourselves.
Correct.
Yeah. So my little known fact is I listen to Indian classical music to the exclusion of everything, and my children hate Hindustani classical music. So they make me, younger son is a big fan of Pink Floyd, and he practically sort of sits on my chest and makes me listen to,
So in that case, my related little known fact is the fact that I've actually studied Indian classical music for about 8 years and I even had an Arangetam, which is an on-stage performance, but let's not go there. I think it's a mandatory thing that all South Indians have to do along with working in software engineering for a year. So anyway, let's take a little break, and on the other side, we will have a main topic of simplification, the exciting topic of the Indian presidential elections.
Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Amit Verma, the host of the weekly podcast, The Seen and the Unseen. In my show, I examine the seen effects and the unintended consequences of public policy and private action. I show how policies meant to help the poor often end up hurting the poor. I've done episodes so far on demonetization, GST, surgical strikes, immigration and MRP. And I will continue my forensic assault on the truth in the weeks to come.
Catch the show every Monday on the IVM Podcast app or any other podcasting app that you prefer. Or visit seenunseen.in for all the latest updates.
Welcome back to the main segment of the show, folks. So right now, the Indian presidential elections are hotting up and we are going to talk not about the politics behind it or anything.
No, but we are here to talk about the role of the president. So basically, we are going to get into the theory part of things. So we are going to talk about the role of the president and how the elections are actually done. For starters, let's look at the role itself. Now, the most important role a president of India seems to be being the answer to a GK question for school kids. But surely he does a little more than that. So this is what Wikipedia says. The President of the Republic of India is the head of state of India and the Commander-in-Chief of the Indian Armed Forces. So now let's break that down a little bit. What does head of state mean? It's a public persona that officially represents the national unity and legitimacy of a sovereign state. That's quite a mouthful. Now, you might argue that Sachin Tendulkar and Ratan Tata have done that job better than, say, a Pranab Mukherjee or Pratibha Patil, who, by the way, Pratibha Patil, by the way, still remains the most unremarkable person ever to hold that higher post. And depending on the type of government in that country, this so-called public persona might either have a lot of power or might be purely ceremonial. So that's like the extremes. For example, countries that have a parliamentary system, such as UK or India, have a head of state which is largely ceremonial, and the Prime Minister actually runs the damn country, or at least is supposed to. Again, we will stay apolitical here.
Yeah, correct. And other countries that follow a presidential form of system have the president who is the head of state, and he or she has all the executive powers like the US.
Again, even though we have a lot of temptation to get political here, we are refraining.
Even within the parliamentary system, there are two models. One in which the head of state theoretically has a lot of power, but the execution of that is left to the head of government. This is like India, Pakistan and the UK. And a non-executive model in which he has very limited power or almost no power at all, even otherwise. So even nominally he has no power, it's just purely ceremonial. This happens in Sweden and Japan.
Yeah. By the way, I just realized, so we are actually saying that Pratibha Patil was a commander-in-chief of the Indian Armed Forces.
Would seem so.
Yeah. So this is, just to be clear, this is Pratibha. Let's see how many jet miles we can collect in 4 years, Patil.
Yes.
She could command 2.5 million Indian Army, Navy and Air Force personnel.
That would seem about right. Yeah. And keep in mind, the head of state of the United States lusts after his own daughter and has quick access to a nuke button on his desk.
Happy times we live in. Anyway, getting back to the president.
But one thing that we must respect Pratibha Patil was not to get the 2.5 million Armed Forces personnel to fly jet and collect the miles in her name.
In her name, correct. No, but you can't, because Jet Airways, you need to fly it. Anyway, no.
That's right. That's very technical. And it's jurisprudence based, so I think we are not competent to handle that.
Anyway, back to the President of India. Basically, after independence in 1947, the Constitution was written and it was enacted on 26 November 1949 and came into force in 26 Jan 1950. Again, something that all school kids have tattooed at the back of their hands. And that is the day when India officially became a republic, which is today a pathetic excuse for journalism, but is supposed to mean a state in which supreme power is held by the people and their elected representatives, and which has an elected or nominated president rather than a monarch. So basically, after independence, there was still a monarch and a governor general, and both roles were scrapped, replaced by the first president of independent India, Rajendra Prasad. Yet another. It's like a GK, refresher, no? This podcast.
It's immortality guaranteed, really.
So basically, now the job of the president, in one line, if we were to sum it up, it is to defend the constitution. Something that the government proposes can become law only after the president says, yep, that's fine, let's go ahead with that. He also summons both houses of parliament and can dissolve the Lok Sabha.
Another thing that the president can do is promulgate ordinances, which is, if parliament is not in session and some immediate action is necessary on something, he can basically say something and that is law.
Yeah, but I think these two words, promulgate, ordinance, I think is one of those pairs in which one can't do without the other. No, it's like there are some words you don't see with, like aquiline nose. I've never seen the word aquiline being used for anything else. Or
you can't have aquiline ears or eyebrows.
Or aquiline laptop or something like that. Or it's like Laurel and Hardy. Like one can't do without the other. One of the ordinances, by the way, that Pranab Mukherjee, the current president, had promulgated was the Criminal Law Amendment Act of 2013, which basically added laws related to sexual offences. And this was in the wake of the gang rape case a few years ago, the Delhi case. Nirbhaya case. So Parliament was not in session when all that happened. So he was the one who had enacted this promulgated this
they
ordinance.
sort of made it a lot more severe.
Yeah.
And, He also appoints the Chief Justice and the Attorney General of India, who's the Indian government's chief legal advisor. So he's like the lawyer to the He'll tell the Indian government if you can sue the guy for not cleaning his toilets or something like that. He also has a bunch of other powers, but one of the most important is the ability to declare a state of emergency, national emergency, state emergency, or financial emergency.
So we are not getting into details of those emergencies as such, but
it's an important power because it has been exercised.
It has been exercised and very controversially as well. Because what happens in a state of at least national emergency is a lot of citizens' rights are curtailed.
Are put on hold.
Again, curtailed is also one of those words that only go with citizens' rights. It's like these pair of words that you find only in social studies textbooks. Anyway, there is a whole bunch of things that the president can do. There are, of course, several more, but hopefully you get a gist of the major powers over here. Anything I've missed out on, Naren, that you can think of any major things that I've missed out on?
No, and actually it also answers a long-standing doubt of mine because, the president's house has, some 575 rooms.
Correct.
Something like that. And he generally just waffles around. I mean, no disrespect, but there's nothing much he seems to do. And I would always wonder what it is that a president does that cannot be done living in a 2 BHK. Right? So why does he need or you can have, 550 divided by 275 presidents for each department.
Wow.
I'm the president for the Department of Animal Husbandry and someone else will be the animal wifery or whatever. I don't know.
Very bad, Naren. This whole thing just led up to, this whole episode basically just was an excuse for you to say that. Anyway, the president has no control over several other important issues, such as who the Indian team's coach should be, whether the Airtel girl should be banned for life, whether Metallica should come back to India again, and of course whether Simblified should be made the national podcast of the country. I mean,
it's already been declared by the UNESCO as the best. Simplified is already UNESCO best podcast of India. So another fact about Pranab, he turned down pleas of 37 convicts in the first 4 years of his tenure. So these would be pleas to overturn death sentences.
Death sentences, including some very high-profile cases, actually. So while Pranab Mukherjee generally has the demeanor of a huggable old grandpa, the fact that he was, in effect, the most lethal of all presidents.
But I suspect that even that is sort of guided by state policy and things like that. It's not like on a whim he can do.
And possibly national sentiment as well. Because if you look at some of the pleas that he turned down, it was Afzal Guru, it was Kasab. So I'm guessing if he hadn't rejected these mercy pleas, then there would have been a lot of national uproar.
Yeah, it's a tough decision, and it's a decision he takes, I'm sure, in consultation with the elected government.
Correct. But anyway, most people say that Pranab's greatest achievement was the fact that he is not Pratibha Patil.
He's very talented at that. Actually,
he's very talented at not being Pratibha Patil. Yeah. Speaking of which, I searched. So unlike here's a challenge, Naren. So there's a lot of online discourse about whether a particular government is good or bad. And obviously, all parties have their opinions as to whether governments by themselves have been good or bad. From the current Narendra Modi government all the way back to the first one ever. And everybody has their opinions on this. Pinning down whether president has been good or not is much more difficult because they are far more removed from the public eye. Their actions might not be seen that much. And the fact of the matter is they don't have a lot of power at the end of the day. Like, honestly, the only time when they come into the spotlight is when there's a very high profile ordinance, such as the one following the Nirbhaya case. Like, even I searched for what are the other ordinances that either he or Pratibha Patil or Abdul Kalam for that matter have promulgated, but couldn't find anything really. So that's sort of like the dicey situation. There are some people who say Pranab Mukherjee is a great president, but nobody knows why.
What evidence?
But largely online, the battle for the worst president of India is a tie between Pratibha Patil and Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed, who blindly signed India into emergency under Indira Gandhi. The main criticism of Pratibha Patil being the lavish foreign trips that she took, apparently over 250 crores worth, which included beach holidays for her kids, grandkids and all that, commuting a lot of death sentences, and building her retirement bungalow on land meant for soldiers and officers.
So we will commute this part of the podcast and be back with part 3, which is now
how the president
was
is actually elected.
Yeah. See you in a while.
Hi, I'm May, and I'm a huge fan of the indie music scene in our country. A scene that's relatively underground, even though it sometimes speaks its head overground. But there's no shortage of talent, and I get the privilege of interviewing some of the most awesome musicians on my show. I've had the likes of Euphoria, Krish Kale, Hardcore, Randolph Correa. I've had singer-songwriters, folk singers, electronic music producers, playback singers, rappers, fusion artists, instrumentalists, classical musicians, and so on. Whether mainstream or not, these people have chosen to release their original music, and these are the people currently shaping the direction in which our music scene is heading. Join me on my show every Monday and tune in to discover the unique talent coming out of India today. You can catch Made in India on your favorite podcasting app or our very own IVM podcast app.
So welcome to part 3. And
now for so if you're thinking of applying for the post of President of India, so let's get into that. Naren, let's see how your chances stack up. Need to be a citizen of India? Check. Okay. Above 35 years?
Check.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I don't look it, but yes.
Yeah. Eligible to become an MP, which I'm guessing you are. Holds no office of profit. Oh, sorry, that kind of rules you out.
I'm not really making much of a profit, so yeah.
What is I wonder what the law says about holding an office of loss. Have you ever considered that? Like Vijay Mallya, like he doesn't hold an office of profit.
He should be like unanimously elected. Like office of profit doesn't disqualifies you. So office of loss means bigger loss.
Yeah. So I'm sure that none of our esteemed MPs hold office of profit. That would obviously be a conflict of interest. So the president is elected by MPs and MLAs. There should be at least 50 to sign the candidates' nomination papers as proposers and another 50 seconders. And you can't vote more than once. The value of, and here's where things start getting a little complicated. So, okay, the government is elected by the people, the president is elected by the college. MPs and the electoral college that consists of MPs and MLAs. It's officially the worst college in India after Amity. The value of each MLA's vote IIPM is dead now, no? So now Amity has moved to rank 1.
Incredible.
Yeah. AICT has...
I used to think about the day when IITs would advertise, dare to think beyond IIPM.
The value of each MLA. So here's the thing. When we vote in the general elections, each citizen's vote is equal, right? As blasphemous as it is, as it may seem, my vote is as valuable as yours is. In the government, in the presidential elections, however, the value of each MLA's vote is different, is actually proportional to the population of the state where he or she comes from. And here's the funny part, as per the 1971 census.
Awesome.
Yeah, because why not?
And really, our population hasn't increased
not by much.
It's very logical.
Yeah. So the value of the MLA's vote is equal to the population of the state where he or she comes from divided by the number of assembly seats that state has into 1,000. So this leads to a certain value, and we will obviously not tell you all the values, but for example, that would be 159 in Andhra Pradesh, 8 in Arunachal Pradesh, 20 in Goa, 152 from my home state, which is Kerala. This is again the population divided by the number of assembly seats from that state into 1,000. The highest number would seem to be, unsurprisingly, Uttar Pradesh, which is 208. So basically each...
But I have a technical this thing there. So it says 176 in Jharkhand, but Jharkhand wasn't there in 1971.
Yeah, so I think, I'm not quite sure. I'm guessing they just draw it up and add up the districts and stuff like that. So the value of an MP's vote is equal to the value... now here's... so this is an MLA's vote, to the formula that we just said. And the value of an MP's vote is different, is the value of votes of all MLAs divided by the total number of MPs in the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha together. In 2017, this number was 708. And if we haven't confused you enough already...
That's the same for all MPs?
Yes, for all MPs. Yeah.
Across the country.
Across the country, yeah. So all MPs and MLAs basically vote. They are asked to rank 1, 2 and 3. After that, if one candidate gets 50% of the vote plus one, he is the winner, which means he is walking into the Rashtrapati Bhavan. If nobody has that value, the person with the least first preference vote is eliminated and his votes are redistributed till a winner has emerged. Basically, it's a long, complicated process. Trust whatever the newspapers
It sounds
tell
so
you.
much like a card game, no? So the guy who packs, then you take out.
It should be that way. The president should be decided by a game of Uno, I think. Uno or Monopoly. Actually, Monopoly is a very bad game too. Yeah, so it should be a much simpler process. So that basically, in a nutshell, is it about the president. There's this old joke I once read, must forgive me, from a Kushwant Singh joke book, which was that whoever the president was during Indira Gandhi's reign, he had apparently never seen a plane before. It's a very stupid joke. He had never seen a plane before, and he was very excited when he had come to the airport for the first time with Mrs. Gandhi, who had absolute disdain for the president. And he saw a 737 in the distance and started jumping up and down saying Boeing, Boeing, Boeing. And Indira Gandhi got annoyed and said, be silent. So he thought for a while and said, owing, owing, owing. It's a very sad, bad joke, which I laughed at a lot in 4th standard. And I'm sorry for inflicting that.
So I have a couple of very, very rude stories which I will tell you privately later.
Stories on request. You can just ping Naren on Twitter. Shanoy N is there. So yes, we will end this podcast with an etymology. The etymology that I have today is not related to the president, but somewhat
directly.
It's regarding the governor. So the adjective that's used to talk about a governor is gubernatorial. And yeah, that sounds like a very nice, round, funny word, right?
So goober is a word for it's what peanuts are called in some parts of the United States.
And it's a slang for stuff that comes out of your nose, no?
That is booger.
Booger.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
So goober and so
sounds like
governors are like peanuts. Also, gube in Kannada means owl, which is like a fool. Hey, gube. Call somebody on gube means even ullu.
Ullu.
Yeah.
Okay. It starts with, like all etymologies was in Greek, it starts with kubernan, which means to steer. And that it got bastardized into Latin, which is for gubernator. That became again steer
Latin
and govern.
And Tamil is same guy. So K
Latin
becomes G. Yeah.
K becomes G.
Yeah.
And that became gubernator, and then eventually EL got added in English, which is gubernatorial, and that in the mid 18th century is how gubernan became gubernatorial. Naren, your governor story now.
Yeah. So there's this guy driving a truck in New Orleans, and he's going really fast. So the cops pull him over. And by law in Louisiana, you're supposed to have a governor on your truck, so you can't go too fast. So he says, what is this? You're driving too fast. He says, sorry. He says, don't you have a governor? This guy says, that's the fish you're smelling at the back. My governor's back in New Orleans. Yeah. So that's my governor. Such as it is.
Such as it is.
Apologize for the
That's okay. If we start apologizing for everything, then we'll need a separate section just for that. So that's about it. We hope you've learned.
We hope we have demystified the presidential election. And I would like to say one thing. The incredible amount of nominal powers that our president has, it's a great testimony to Indian constitutional discipline that it has really not been misused.
Yeah, so that's one well-written book.
That is very well done, and I hope it stays that way in the years to come.
Yeah, we'll need it.
Yeah,
we'll need it. All right, by the time you hear this podcast, we might have a new president. Again, we won't get to the politics of that, but good luck.
Yeah.
And see you very soon. And this episode has been dedicated to Srikeit.
Yeah.
Who might be the next president. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Excuse me, भैया. एक्सक्यूज मी,
बोलिए मैडम।
मेन्यू में क्या है?
मेन्यू में सीन अनसीन है, पॉडकास्ट है, ऑन कोर्स है, साइरस है, मेड इन इंडिया, रीडिस्कवरी प्रोजेक्ट, एम्पावरिंग सीरीज, सेक्स वैक्स है, IVM लाइक्स है, सिम्प्लीफाइड है, कीपिंग इट क्वियर है, थिंग्स एंड डेस्टिनेशंस है, माय नेबर सकरबर्ग है और द फैन गराज है। आपको क्या चाहिए?
एक बार रिपीट कर देंगे क्या?
रिपीट नहीं करता हम। आप जाओ IVMpodcast.com पे और सुनो ये सब, या फिर डाउनलोड करो उनका ऐप, सब आपकी उंगलियों पे।